6 months after my mother's passing, I uncovered 67% of the embezzled funds, tracking them through 4 nations. When I brought in the FBI, my stepmother's face drained of color. When my father wed Cassandra, I was 11. Mom had been gone for 13 months, taken by melanoma that advanced faster than anyone foresaw. One morning she mentioned a migraine, and 82 days later, I stood by her grave in a black dress, its tag still attached. Dad waited precisely a year before introducing Cassandra. She handled client relations at his investment firm. Flawless smile. Blonde hair that stayed perfectly in place. The kind of woman who wore stilettos to casual barbecues. She brings joy back into my life, Dad said, his voice gentle yet firm. I need you to make an effort, Elise. So I did. I helped Cassandra settle in, carrying boxes of designer heels to the closet where Mom's gardening gear once lived. I nodded politely as she swapped our furniture, trading family photos for modern art that breathed life into the room. I even forced a smile when she turned Mom's vegetable garden into a Zen courtyard, claiming homegrown produce was too rustic. For 3 years, I played the part of the grateful stepdaughter. I attended her corporate galas in dresses she picked out. I endured her friends' praise about how poised I was for 14. I hid my grief behind stellar grades and practiced smiles. Dad didn't see that I stopped laughing. He was too caught up in Cassandra's social calendar and the new clients she attracted. Too busy with their wellness retreats and vineyard memberships. Meanwhile, I slept with Mom's cardigan under my pillow until her scent faded. Cassandra tried, in her way. She gave me extravagant birthday presents she'd have chosen for herself. She hosted grand dinner parties, introducing me as our daughter to powerful people who forgot my name. She set up a college fund for me, ensuring everyone knew of her kindness. But when I got my first period, Google was my guide. When nightmares of Mom's death haunted me, our family dog comforted me. The tipping point came in my sophomore year. I landed the starring role in the school play. It was the first thing I cared about since Mom's death. Opening night clashed with Cassandra's gala. You'll have to miss the show, of course, she said, eyes on her phone. The Hendersons are bringing their son. He's at Stanford.
Networking, Elise.
Dad started to protest, but fell silent when Cassandra touched his arm. It's just a school play, he said finally. There'll be others. I retreated to my room and opened the old music box Mom left me. Inside were her wedding band, a strand of my baby hair, and a diary I'd avoided, dreading her final words. That night, through sobs, I read it cover to cover. Most entries were as expected, her dreams for my future, cherished moments, and advice she couldn't give in person. But the last entry, written 2 weeks before her death, stood out. If you're reading this, Elise, I must tell you about the safe deposit box. The key is taped inside the cover. What you find will append everything. I'm so sorry. The key was small silver, etched with the bank's name. The next day, I skipped school and visited First National. The manager knew me. Mom's family had banked there for generations. Your mother said you'd come one day, he said, leading me to the vault. The box held a USB drive, stacks of files, and a letter in Mom's handwriting. My dearest Elise, it began. By now, Cassandra has likely woven herself into your lives. I've known about her for years.
He read the letter twice, maille en trembling.
Mom learned of Dad's affair with Cassandra 6 months before her diagnosis. She'd hired a private investigator who documented it all. Hotel receipts, text exchanges, photos of them together while Mom was picking me up from swim practice. The investigator's report was thorough, spanning months. There were photos of Dad and Cassandra at motels in 3 cities, screenshots of texts that turned my stomach. She's taking Elise to her grandma's this weekend. Come over. Can you picture when we won't need to sneak around? Sometimes I wish she'd just vanish. That last one was from Dad, for months before Mom fell ill. I sifted through credit card statements showing dinners at unfamiliar restaurants on nights Dad claimed he was working late. Receipts for jewelry Mom never wore, a lease for a city apartment not in our family's records. But there was more. The files included financial records showing Dad and Cassandra had been siphoning money from Mom's family trust, my inheritance, into offshore accounts. They'd planned it for years, biding their time. Mom's family had built one of the city's largest financial firms over 3 generations. When she married Dad, he was just an eager consultant. She'd brought him into the company, mentored him, and helped him rise to partner. The trust was her family's legacy, meant for me. I found spreadsheets detailing millions moved through shell companies, fake client accounts, and rigged investments. The money flowed through a dozen countries before vanishing into numbered accounts. Dad's signature was on every key document. Cassandra's on most. The worst part, medical records suggested Mom's rapid decline might not have been natural. Odd test results, unusual prescriptions. She'd ordered private toxicology tests when she grew suspicious. I started feeling off after our anniversary dinner, Mom wrote. Fatigue at first, then worse. The doctors couldn't pinpoint why. When I tracked it, I noticed I only felt this way after meals Thomas made for me. Lab tests on hair samples showed elevated heavy metals, suggesting chronic exposure. Tests on food from our home. Consultations with 3 specialists noted an abnormal progression of her symptoms. I can't prove it, Mom wrote. And by the time you read this, it won't matter to me. But I couldn't leave you defenseless. The letter's final page outlined her counter-strategy. She'd created a second, hidden trust in my name. When I turned 18, the house and company I thought Dad controlled would legally be mine. Mom revised her will 2 weeks before her death, working with lawyers Dad didn't know. I've ensured what's yours stays yours, she wrote. The trustees will reach you on your 18th birthday, but if you find this sooner, contact them with the details in the enclosed envelope. They're ready when you are. I sat in the bank's private room for hours, absorbing it all. When I left, I was changed. The grief and confusion that defined me for 3 years had crystallized into something sharper. Something resolute. I didn't confront Dad right away. I didn't run or call the police. I did something bolder. I became the perfect daughter. For 2 years, I performed flawlessly. I aced school, joined the groups Cassandra suggested, and attended every dull corporate event. I wore the right clothes, said the right words, and never hinted at what I knew. At night, I meticulously tracked their ongoing schemes. Whenever Dad mentioned a tricky client or complex investment at dinner, I researched the companies, tracing the money through their web of fake entities. I built my own spreadsheets, inspired by Mom's work. My bedroom became my headquarters. I installed a hidden safe under my desk to store copies of everything. I recorded conversations at family meals and business meetings where they thought I wasn't listening. I photographed documents Dad brought home and left on his desk, assuming his 16-year-old daughter wouldn't grasp their importance. 6 months after finding Mom's letter, I was ready to meet her trustees. The envelope held 3 business cards, a forensic accountant, a financial crimes lawyer, and a retired judge, Mom's father's closest friend. I met them at the judge's home on a Saturday, claiming I was at mock trial practice. I'd explained it all over the phone, but seeing their faces as they reviewed the physical evidence was different. The accountant winced at the scale of the fraud. The lawyer muttered an expletive. The judge looked at me with a mix of sorrow and steely rage. Your mother was one of the best people I knew, he said. What do you want to do, Elise? I'd spent months weighing my options. I could expose everything immediately, sending Dad and Cassandra to jail. I could disappear and wait until 18 to claim my inheritance. I could confront them, sparking a brutal showdown. Instead, I followed Mom's example and chose calculated, exacting justice. I want to learn everything, I told them. About the business, finance, law, and how to lead a company. I want to be prepared when I reclaim it all. The judge nodded, unsurprised. Your mother predicted you'd say that. She left instructions for us if you chose this path. For the next 18 months, I lived a double life. At home and school, I was the ideal high-achieving daughter Cassandra could brag about at parties. But 3 nights a week, I slipped away to study groups or volunteer work, which were intensive training sessions with my secret team. The accountant taught me to dissect financial statements, detect fraud, and navigate the complex transactions that kept the family business running. The lawyer educated me on corporate law, contracts, and the legal frameworks that would let me seize control. The judge connected me with his network in banking, investments, and regulatory agencies, people who admired Mom but were appalled by what happened to her company. Meanwhile, I worked with Mom's attorneys to prepare the trust, evidence, and strategy. I graduated high school at 16, a year early. Dad and Cassandra were ecstatic. Their star was headed to Harvard early with a full scholarship. They didn't know I'd been taking online finance and business courses, studying everything about Dad's company, including the accounts they thought were hidden. "We're so proud," Dad said at my small graduation party. "Just family and a few of their friends."
No one from my school, no one who truly knew me.
"You've surpassed all our hopes," Cassandra said, draping an arm around me for the photographer they'd hired.
Harvard.
"Early admission. The board is already eager about your future with the firm." I smiled and thanked them, knowing that in under 2 years, I'd own that board. Cassandra announced her plan to adopt me formally that summer before college. "You're my daughter in every sense," she said, brushing my cheek over lunch at her favorite upscale bistro.
Let's make it official before you leave for college.
I studied her face for any trace of sincerity. Her eyes were guarded, flicking to Dad after a measured glance at me. This wasn't about affection. It was about locking in her status. If Dad died, his adopted daughter would have a stronger claim to the business. I smiled and hugged her, whispering that nothing would make me happier. "We should celebrate," Dad said, already signaling for the bill. "Perhaps a weekend in Nantucket. We could invite the Warrens. Their sons at Columbia Law." "That sounds wonderful," I said, recalling the dossier I'd compiled on the Warren struggling tech startup and the mysterious cash injection it got from one of Dad's shell companies last year. That night, I called an urgent meeting with my trustees. We met in the judge's wood-paneled study after I told Dad and Cassandra I was staying over at a friend's to celebrate graduation. "They want me to sign adoption papers," I said. "Does this change our plan?" The lawyer spread documents on the mahogany table. "In fact, this could help us. Adoption requires financial disclosures, giving us a fresh view of their assets, and it doesn't affect your mother's trust."
Det är certight.
"How close are we?" I asked. The accountant pushed up his glasses. "We've traced 67% of the stolen funds across 4 countries to identifiable accounts. It's more than enough for criminal charges." "And the evidence about your mother's illness?" the judge asked quietly. This was the hardest part for me. The possibility that Dad hadn't just betrayed Mom but poisoned her. The medical experts we consulted couldn't definitively prove murder, but the pattern was troubling enough to justify an investigation. "Let's hold that back for now," I decided. One fight at a time. As I prepared to leave, the judge handed me a small wrapped gift. "Your mother left this with instructions to give it to you when you were ready to proceed." Inside was an antique fountain pen that belonged to my grandfather. "She used this to sign her first major deal," the judge said. "Said she wanted you to have it when you were ready to take back what's yours." I carried the pen everywhere after that night. A symbol. A vow. 2 weeks later, Mother's Day arrived. Cassandra always made a spectacle of it. Lavish brunches, professional photographers to capture our bond for social media. This year, she planned a garden party for 30 of their closest allies. The adoption announcement would be the centerpiece. Spent the prior week crafting my gift, working late in my room, compiling files, organizing evidence, and designing the perfect presentation. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was the most thoughtful gift I'd ever made for her. The morning of the party was bright and warm, perfect for Cassandra's meticulously orchestrated event. By 7 a.m., caterers arrived, followed by florists, planners, and a small crew transforming our backyard into a pristine venue that bore no trace of Mom's vibrant garden. Found Cassandra in her dressing room, surrounded by discarded outfit options. "What do you think?" she asked, holding up 2 nearly identical ivory dresses. "Givenchy or Prada?" "The Prada," I said, noting how she swiftly set aside the Givenchy I'd picked. "I have something special for you," I said, handing her a neatly wrapped box with a gold ribbon. "Oh, you shouldn't have," she said, her surprise almost convincing. We both knew I'd never given her a Mother's Day gift before. I wanted to, for today's announcement. She set the box aside. "I'll open it later, at the party. More meaningful that way." "I'd prefer you open it now," I pressed. "It's personal." Something in my voice made her pause. She studied my face before reaching for the box. Inside was a custom-bound book. The cover was embossed in silver, a daughter's tribute. "Oh, Elise," she said, clearly expecting a collection of sentimental photos and messages. Her hands shook slightly as she opened it. The first page held a photo of Mom, radiant, from before her illness. "What is this?" she asked, her voice tight. "Keep going," I said softly. "It gets better." Page by page, the book told the story Mom left me. Hotel receipts, bank statements, medical reports, all carefully annotated in my precise handwriting. I watched her expression shift as she turned each page, from confusion to shock, anger, then fear. By the time she reached the section on the stolen trust funds, her makeup was smudging from the sweat on her forehead. "This is nonsense," she muttered, but kept turning pages, unable to stop. The final section detailed the restructured trust, the legal actions already in motion, and the meeting set for tomorrow with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. "Those offshore accounts you and Dad set up," I said casually, leaning against the vanity, "aren't as hidden as you thought. Did you know 17 countries have signed new banking transparency pacts in the last 5 years, or that wire transfers leave digital trails tied to your phone's GPS?" Her face was ghostly pale. "Your father and I will be very interested in the deal I'm offering," I finished, still smiling as the doorbell chimed, announcing the first guests. "Far better than jail." She stood, spilling her mimosa.
You ungrateful little.
"Careful," I said. "Your guests are watching, and I'm still deciding whether to share Chapter 3 with them." She glanced at the book, still open to a page with her texts to Dad from the week Mom was in the hospital. Texts complaining about visiting hours clashing with their dinner reservations.
What do you want?
She hissed, smoothing her dress with shaking hands. "You're going to go downstairs, host your party, smile, laugh, and be the perfect hostess. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., you and Dad will meet me at Judge Carver's office to discuss terms for your continued freedom." Her eyes darted around the room, perhaps searching for an escape. She found none. "This is extortion." "No," I corrected. "This is justice, with a hint of leniency, if you earn it." I moved toward the door. "You have 30 seconds to fix your makeup. Guests are waiting." The party dragged on for an agonizing 3 hours. Cassandra held it together, despite trembling hands and a smile that never reached her eyes. I played the devoted daughter flawlessly, toasting her impact on my life and watching her wince at each veiled jab only we understood. "Elise has been a gift," Cassandra told the judge's wife, Mrs. Carver. "I couldn't love her more if she were my own. And Cassandra has taught me so much," I said, holding her gaze. "About trust. About accountability." Mrs. Carver glanced between us, sensing tension but unable to pinpoint it. "You two are clearly perfect for each other." Dad texted that he was delayed at his tennis match, which was just as well. His gift waited in his study, an identical book with extra documents detailing his role in the fraud. As the afternoon wore on, guests trickled out, thanking Cassandra for the lovely event and congratulating me on Harvard. I stood beside her at the door, accepting embraces from women who reeked of expensive fragrance and unease, shaking hands with men who knew my grandfather but forgot my name. "Is Cassandra." For the lovely event and congratulating me on Harvard. I stood beside her at the door, accepting embraces from women who reeked of expensive fragrance and unease, shaking hands with men who knew my grandfather but forgot my name. "Is Cassandra okay?" One of Dad's partners asked cautiously. "She seems off." "Oh, she's just emotional about the adoption," I said. "Today means so much to her." Cassandra vanished upstairs after the last guest left. I found her 20 minutes later, frantically packing a suitcase. "Going somewhere?" I asked from the doorway. She whirled around, clutching a handful of jewelry. "You can't prove any of this. It's all circumstantial, it's..." The FBI disagrees. So does the SEC. But go ahead and run. They're expecting it. There's an agent at the end of the street. It's been 3 days. This was a bluff. The authorities weren't involved yet. That was part of my strategy. But Cassandra didn't know. She sank onto the bed, her half-packed suitcase open beside her. "What happens now?" "Now we wait for Dad. Then we discuss terms." Dad arrived an hour later, calling Cassandra's name as he walked in. I met him in the entryway, holding his gift. "Where's Cass?" "How was the party?" he asked, loosening his tie. "She's upstairs, and you should open this first." As he flipped through the evidence, I saw the same emotions play across his face. Unlike Cassandra, he stayed silent, his legal training kicking in even in shock. When he finally looked up, his expression was blank. "Where did you get this?" "Mom left it for me, with instructions." Something like pain crossed his face, quickly buried. "Elise, whatever you think you know, is documented in triplicate and stored in multiple safe locations," I finished for him. including evidence about Mom's health decline that suggests more than financial crimes. His face paled at that. You can't possibly think I poisoned her. I don't know. The evidence is inconclusive but strong enough for an investigation, if I choose to pursue it. He closed the book gently, as if it might detonate.
What do you want?
The same thing I told your wife.
9 heures du matin tomorrow.
Judge Carver's office. We'll discuss how you avoid prison. That night, after the guests were gone, I found Cassandra alone in the dark of Mom's old garden, surrounded by the stark white furniture she'd chosen over the wildflowers. Why now? She asked without looking at me.
Why ouais so long?
I sat nearby, smoothing my skirt. Mom taught me patience, and I needed to understand everything first.
What do you want? For 2 years, idée picture de mes elfes triomphant, if no tapis, in this moment.
Instead, facing this woman who helped destroy my mother left me empty. Dad transfers control of the company to me, through the original trust structure. You both resign publicly but stay on as consultants under my oversight.
The money you stole returns to the trust.
In exchange, I don't press criminal charges. She gave a bitter laugh.
You're 16. You can't run a company.
I'm nearly 17. With a team of Mom's trustees who've been waiting for this day, and I've been preparing for it half my life. Dad's heavy footsteps crossed the patio.
Cassandra gripped the armrest.
He'll never agree. I stood, adjusting the necklace Mom left me. He already has. Check your phone. While we spoke, Dad had found his own copy of my Mother's Day gift. His text to Cassandra was 3 words, she knows everything. Dad joined us on the patio, his face weary in the fading light. You didn't have to do it like this, he said quietly. You could have come to me directly. Like Mom did? I asked. When she confronted you about the affair 4 years ago. Or when she questioned the trust payouts. How did those direct talks go? He had no answer. The company isn't just numbers, he argued. It's relationships.
Client confidence.
If you push us out, the damage could be already managed, I cut in. Mom's original team is ready to step in. Most never trusted you anyway, they stayed for her legacy. Cassandra glared at him. You said they were loyal to you. That you'd locked in their support. He lied, I told her. Like he lied about the prenup you signed. The one with the cheating clause that leaves you with nothing if you divorce. Her head whipped toward him.
What prenup?
The one I have a copy of, I said. Along with proof of your ongoing affair with Ethan Caldwell, from legal. Did you think those hotel charges wouldn't show up in the audits? Her face went white. Dad looked confused, then furious, as realization hit. You said that was done, he shouted. It is, she insisted, but her eyes darted away.
Elise is playing you.
Actually, that's your expertise, I said, standing. I prefer straightforward methods. 9 a.m. tomorrow, don't be late, and don't try leaving town. I have people watching the house. I left them on the patio, their heated whispers trailing me inside in my room. I called Judge Carver to confirm our meeting, then emailed the full dossier to my trustees, instructing them to release it to authorities if I didn't check in by noon the next day. Sleep was elusive that night. I lay awake, hearing their muffled arguments down the hall, punctuated by something breaking and a door slamming. Around 3 a.m., I heard a car start and drive off. By morning, the house was still. I dressed carefully for the meeting, wearing a tailored suit Mom had bought for my first debate tournament. Her pearl earrings. Minimal makeup. Professional. Serious. Older than my years. Downstairs, I found Dad alone at the kitchen counter, staring into a coffee mug, still in yesterday's clothes. Where's Cassandra? I asked, though I'd guessed. Gone, he said flatly. Took her jewelry and car. Left her phone so she couldn't be tracked. I'd anticipated this. That complicates things, but doesn't change them. She's not the primary stakeholder anyway. He looked up, his eyes red and hollow. You look like her, he said, startled. Your mother, when she was fighting for something. The comparison both warmed and stung me. We should go. The judge hates tardiness. The meeting was short but thorough. Dad, stripped of his usual swagger, signed every document placed before him. Power of attorney, transfer of voting rights, resignation letter. Judge Carver guided him through each step with a calm voice and cold eyes. You understand these terms depend on your cooperation with the financial recovery team. Any attempt to hide assets or interfere will activate the criminal complaints we've prepared. Dad nodded mechanically. And the company statement will follow the provided script, citing family succession and a desire to honor Catherine's legacy as reasons for the transition? Another nod. Sign here and here. Initial there. When it was done, Judge Carver slid the final document across the table. This states you won't contact Elise directly, except through approved channels, until she's 18. All communication goes through my office or the trustees. Dad's head jerked up. What?
She's my doctor.
You can't sign it, I said softly. Or I'll release the medical evidence. His hand trembled as he signed. When he set down the pen, Mom's fountain pen, which I'd brought for this moment, his shoulders slumped with a finality that aged him instantly. Can I at least explain? He asked quietly. I've read your explanations, I said. In your emails to Cassandra. In the memos justifying the transfers. In the report you drafted for the board last year, positioning me as a future symbolic leader with no real power. I understand perfectly. Judge Carver ended the meeting, informing Dad a car was waiting to take him to a hotel. He could return to the house next week to collect personal items, but only with supervision. As Dad stood to leave, he paused by my chair. Your mother would be proud, he said. I couldn't tell if he meant it as praise or accusation. I know, I said simply. 2 months later, I sat at the head of the conference table in Dad's former office. The firm's transition was framed as a family succession plan, with press releases touting the industry's youngest female CEO. Dad remained a nominal figure, bound by tight contracts that monitored his every financial move. He kept the house and his social status while avoiding prison. In return, I reclaimed what was mine, plus his complete accountability to quarterly reviews where I scrutinized his professional life. The trustees became my leadership team, guiding me through decisions to stabilize the company after years of Dad's manipulation. I deferred Harvard for a year to focus on hands-on business training at the firm. Cassandra reappeared in Miami 3 weeks after fleeing. The FBI detained her as she tried accessing one of the offshore accounts we'd flagged. She spent 2 nights in custody before her father's attorneys secured her release in exchange for her cooperation. She returned to Connecticut under strict oversight, living in a company-owned apartment and working as a client liaison with minimal authority. The prenup I'd referenced proved prophetic. Dad filed for divorce, citing abandonment and infidelity, leaving her with only the terms of our settlement. She fought it initially, threatening to expose the company's misdeeds, but my lawyers reminded her she'd be the first prosecuted. It wasn't justice for Mom.
Nothing could be.
But it was the beginning of what she wanted for me. Control over my future, safeguarding the legacy she built, and holding those who betrayed her accountable. The search for definitive proof of Mom's illness continued quietly. I hired experts to retest hospital-preserved tissue samples, ordered new analyses of items from her dresser I'd left untouched, and interviewed her medical staff. The findings were maddeningly ambiguous. Suspicious patterns but no clear proof. Dad insisted on his innocence there, even in private talks with his lawyer, where he confessed to everything else. The cancer was real, he swore. I never touched her meds. Never tampered with her food. I wanted her gone, yes. I'm guilty of wishing her dead, but not of causing it. I didn't know if I believed him. Part of me wanted him guilty of it all. A complete villain I could destroy without doubt. Another part desperately wanted this one line unbreached, preserving a fragment of the father I once loved. The company flourished under new leadership. We unraveled Dad's tangled schemes, recovered most of the stolen funds, and rebuilt client trust damaged by his corner-cutting. I worked 16-hour days, often sleeping on the office sofa rather than at home. Home. The house no longer felt like one. 6 months after taking over, I sold it and moved to a downtown loft near the office. When the carefully worded but transparent company statement made it clear he'd been ousted, Dad relocated to a modest suburban home, losing his golf club memberships and most of his social network.